RC & Co. Lawyers provide services in property. Not only do we carry out conveyancing matters, where we represent any party, including transfers of land from one to another, but we also provide services in respect of all complex matters that relate to property through legal disputes by representation in court and tribunals. We provide thorough and helpful legal services to solve technical disputes. If you have any complex property issues and/or conveyancing matters that require our attention, these blogs will provide you guidance on conveyancing in complex property matters.
RC & Co. Lawyers provide services in commercial litigation and business. In this subfield of law, we provide guidance, legal representation and transactional work for clients who are involved in commercial and business matters. We will guide you in respect of your rights and entitlements in accordance with the Corporations Act, including contractual rights and responsibilities, and/or how to raise disputes in accordance with contract laws. For commercial litigation and business matters, do not hesitate to contact RC & Co. Lawyers.
RC & Co. Lawyers offer our services in family law. In this subfield of law, you will learn about the many family law services which we make available to you, including de facto and matrimonial property settlements, mediation and arbitration, binding financial agreements, consent orders and Calder Bank letters of offer. We offer court representation and advocacy in family law matters and aim to provide our clients with a smooth process through difficult times. During these challenging times, the courts remain open to assist Australian families. Our family law team is available to help should you require any assistance to navigate these confusing times.
RC & Co. Lawyers offer our services in immigration law. In this subfield of law, you will learn about the many subclasses made available by the Minister and the Department of Home Affairs, including visitor visas, study and training visas, family and partner visas, working and skilled visas, and refugee and humanitarian visas, as well as other visa avenues particular to your circumstances, including resident return visas and bridging visas. We also offer our services and guidance in citizenship applications, merits appeals, and judicial review on immigration matters. If you have questions in relation to Australia immigration matters, please do not hesitate to contact us at RC & Co. Lawyers.
Hi, my name is Alex Monolam, and it is my pleasure to introduce your host for today. Alvin is a registered nurse who currently spends his time reading, educating about investing, and walking around the city. He owns a small badminton center with his partner, Victor. He is also a member and moderator of the Facebook group Pinoy Property Investors Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, a successful property investor and continues to be successful, Alvin Reyes.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. So tonight, we set up this event to give us a basic understanding on trusts. So it's just one of the ways that we can protect our wealth. We want to provide knowledge, basic information, and hopefully initiate interest so that you guys can look into this further using the specific specifications within your family dynamic. So this evening, our presenter is Rochelle Castro. She is the owner of RC & Co Lawyers, a national firm that specializes in property, construction, and commercial law. RC & Co Lawyers headquarters is in Melbourne, with other offices at Williams Landing in Victoria, Sydney in New South Wales, and Perth in Western Australia. She was a university instructor in various universities and colleges in the Philippines before dedicating service in law. While working to further improve her legal skills, Rochelle started to see that she could better serve her clients by not only guiding them, but also educating them. She also works with her A-team at RC & Co Lawyers through continuous training so that her and her team could provide effective, resourceful, and clear legal service to clients. For almost 15 years, Rochelle has appeared in tribunals and various court jurisdictions to advocate her clients' rights. She presents papers on various laws in local and international research forums. Rochelle believes that good practice of law requires effective communication and education to achieve for clients the best result. Please welcome Rochelle.
Hi, Alvin. Hi, all. I'd like to thank the Pinoy Property Investors Australia, particularly the moderator, specifically Alvin Reyes, for giving me an opportunity to share with you. A topic that he shared is a topic that is what you're interested in, that would protect. I like the word that he chose, your wealth. Absolutely. It's a pleasure, and hopefully you can take away information on family trust in ways that you can better protect your wealth. I am going to start by bringing in my slides. Enjoy. Next slide, please. Next slide. Family Trust 101. We will be discussing for the next hour how to set up family trust. So what you see in the slide in front of us is really a breakdown, and I would like to partake in the most simplest way possible, I hope, with you all about family trust so that you can consider it. If you don't have one yet with your family, or if you have one, to look into the particulars if any amendments would be required. So for this hour, we will be discussing what is family trust and exactly, Rochelle, how does it work? We will also be talking about the common reasons a family trust is set up, the advantages, disadvantages, benefits, and expenses in relation to setting up, running, and benefiting from a family trust, and particularly the two types of trusts and which one really suits you and your family depending on your wants and needs. There will be, so that we touch into the practicalities of family trust, we are going to be sharing with you two case studies, and hopefully you can pick up something depending on your circumstances, or you can relate in one of the two circumstances that we will be sharing. And there will be a portion where we will be able to share. That's when Alvin comes back to join me in this live stream, what to do next, because there were questions that were collected. And thank you to those who have registered, because the list of questions that you have put forward, unfortunately, I couldn't name. My team actually suggested that I name you. We're very happy that there's a lot of you. We're very happy that the list of questions, and we have gone through it and we reviewed them, are quite actually similar. And that's how we were guided in forming these sets of questions, so that we could present them to you. But this presentation was actually based on the questions raised by those who registered. So we thank you. We thank you for that if you're one of those who distributed. Next slide, please. Rochelle, what is family trust and exactly how does it work? It's actually an agreement, or we call it a contract. The technical term is it's a trust deed. It's a deed. It's an agreement where we have a person or company. So you've got two legal entities where the trust deed would feature a person or a company who will agree to hold assets for other people's benefits. We also have in the agreement, also what we refer to here as trust deed, the settlor. What is a settlor, Rochelle? A settlor is actually the one who prepares the trust deed. What is a trustee? A trustee is the person who will be running and leading the trust deed. The trustee, whether it's a person or a company, is actually going to be the registered owner of the assets. I'll give you an example, and I'll continue giving these examples. For example, I'm a trustee. I have a trust deed for me, my husband, and two kids, for example. I am appointed as a trustee as an individual. My beneficiaries are myself, my husband, and two children. So what really will show in the house or houses that I purchase is I am the registered owner. However, throughout the process of registering my name as the owner of these house or houses, I will declare to the authorities such as State Revenue Office, Land Victoria, at the time of doing all the legal paperwork, that I'm actually holding it as a trustee. That will then be recorded in the relevant authorities' records that behind my name are actually beneficiaries of the property, meaning they're the ones who will benefit from that property. I am the recorded owner of the property, but there are others behind the trust deed who will be benefiting from that property or properties. And I mentioned beneficiaries. And that would depend on that would be based on the decision on who will be benefiting from these properties or these investments that are held by the trustee. So if you think about it, it's like the trustee is the front cover, the representative, whose name will always be written in all the ownerships. as long as the trustee is the trustee is declared as a trustee in those properties, it will be known to the public, or the world, as we call it in the legal world, that there are others who will actually be benefiting from those assets or property. And I mentioned assets. Assets could include properties, it could include income, it could include savings, it could include any other a jewelry. So it could include all the different types of assets, and all that would be stated in a trust deed, which is what I mentioned to you as the agreement. It would particularize the agreement will particularize and set out who is the settlor, who is writing the agreement, the deed, who is the trustee, meaning the forefront, who will be the registered owner, and who are the beneficiaries, and what are the assets. Next slide, please. So what are the common reasons why you would set up a family trust? One is you and your family, you and your spouse, your wife, your husband, plan to accumulate properties. And that just does not mean your matrimonial home. A couple of days ago, I had my team ask me, because the team who are non-legal practitioners asked me, what is a matrimonial home? That's pretty much the home that you and your spouse own and that you live in. That's the matrimonial home. Aside from the matrimonial home, another reason is to accumulate your investment properties. Another type of reason why a family trust would be set up, and it does not involve husband, wife, and children, though that is my first example. It could also include siblings. It could also include parents, children, and grandchildren. It may also include to extended families. It may also include even outside of families if the trust deed would reflect that. So it could include business investments. So where the family, and I'll stick to the family, where the family decides to invest in businesses such as, for example, a construction business or a restaurant business, and a decision has been made that the profits of that would be kept and secured not only for the husband and wife, for example, but for the future of the children, so that when they reach a certain age, adult age, they have access to the business investment profits. So that's another reason why a family trust would be set up. Another one is, and this where it starts becoming complex, and this is where you need your experts. Manage family income. This is where, with good guidance from your accountant and where good guidance from the trust deed, where you get your legal expert, management of family income. And that could be distributed to low bracket income family members who are beneficiaries of the trust. Next slide, please. What can you get? What are the good things, Rochelle, about a family trust? A lot. If you have a family trust, it protects the beneficiary's assets. That means that in the event that an individual amongst the family becomes bankrupt and their property is actually held by the trustee instead, any assets that are protected by the trust, the family trust, cannot be touched by bankruptcy or by liquidation or wind up of a company, as long as the asset is in the name of the trustee. And that's a big deal. And that is why a lot of doctors and lawyers, most of them don't own their properties in their names. And those who are of high net worth income, and probably to those, some of you who are listening to me, you're probably one of them, silently. That is how a lot of the properties and or assets are in the name of the trustee. So that in the event that the unfortunate happens, bankruptcy or wind up of a company, the liquidator or the bankrupt trustee cannot touch the assets that are in the name of the trustee. Another advantage is it protects the assets from future marriage breakdown in that unfortunate event, where the husband and wife with children, if there is a marriage breakdown, during the time that there's a dispute on property division between husband and wife whose marriage has broken down or as a result of a divorce, any assets that are protected by the family trust will not be part of the negotiations in the dispute of a marriage breakdown between the ex-husband and the ex-wife. And that really is the aim for that. If done effectively, if the protection is there through family trust, that's how the husband and wife could protect their children's future. It avoids will challenges, in where if the deceased estate, so when I say the deceased estate, the person's estate after they pass away, what they leave behind, in the event that the deceased does not include certain assets to be distributed according to their will, any assets that are stated in the family trust would be distributed to the beneficiaries according to that trustee that I was telling you about, that document. It also motivates assets to be held in a family group. So this is where families, for example, they inherit a large farm. And there's a lot of that here in Victoria. There's a lot in New South Wales. There's a lot in Western Australia, where, farms are run by the generation, the 50s and 60s. And there's a time when there are children who are left behind and disputes happen because some of the children want to sell the property, some of their children do not want to sell the property. If the family farm is within or protected by the family trust, and that's controlled by the parents who have actually, and the trustee is actually one of the parents, they'll be able to define and identify how the family farm, the income in relation to the family farm would be distributed among the children. Number 5, protects vulnerable family members. So this is where family trust becomes handy, so in that it protects the assets of the family from unfortunate addiction of family members, such as gambling, or it avoids family members from quick access to large capital sum. And you probably have heard stories, I know I have, a lot of horror stories where the husband is the sole owner. I'm giving only an example. I'm not saying husbands do this. Husband, for example, only owns the property in his name. Wife has been contributed significantly to the mortgage until it got paid off. So it's clean of mortgage. And then husband, unfortunately, starts growing that addiction of gambling, gets desperate, sells the house. We hear those things, or sells the car, the unfinanced car. If the property is under trust, it is protected, and the one of the family members is not able to risk the assets from being sold off. In other words, there would be a control, and the control would be in the trustee's hands. Provides tax benefits so that family group manage tax of family unit. So this is where there is income that would be distributed by the trustee to the beneficiaries for tax purposes. The tax that is payable could be reduced where the income is distributed to the beneficiaries, particularly to those with lower bracket income. I am not a tax lawyer and I'm not an accountant, but if you are in this point of running a family trust, if you do decide to have one, or if you already have one, you probably have an experience, it is absolutely important to work closely and understand how you could benefit from the tax, because the distribution of the income to the beneficiaries will absolutely define a reduction in tax that you pay ATO at the end of each financial year. But if it's done right, there are tax benefits. There is also in a family trust a flexible distribution of an income. And I'll mention that there's a particular type of trust deed that you should have so that there's a flexible distribution of income. And that and this is all done by the trustee. This is all decided by the trustee. And that flexible distribution of income, I recommend, should be decided based on the guidance of your accountant. Access to capital gains discount, tax discount, in relation to properties owned over 1 year. And again, these are when you increase the investment, the property investments that you have. If done correctly and reported correctly by the trustee, you can actually gain 50% discount in the capital gains tax after the property has turned 1 year. Next slide, please. Of course, where there's advantages, there are disadvantages. There are costs involved in respect of maintaining a family trust. And there are complexities, and some of them, which I meant a lot of complexities in relation to distribution of the income each financial year, so that you can enjoy, you meaning you, one of the beneficiaries, and also the trustee, can enjoy the concessions or discount in relation to tax or reduce the tax liability as long as they're all done correctly. So the costs would include annual administrative. So each year, expenses are incurred by the trustee in relation to administrative tasks. Bookkeeping expenses, of course, records have to be kept in relation to the way the family trust is run. So it's like running a mini business, if you like, for the lack of a better word. Accounting expenses each year, and tax return lodgement work. So let's start with first, if you don't have a family trust, if you do decide, expenses in relation to creating a family trust could be between, the agreement itself could be between $2,000 to $3,000. So that's the first expense. The costs to set up a family trust, really meaning you prepare an agreement or you give instructions to your legal representative to prepare a family trust on your behalf, you, the beneficiaries, with in mind already who is the trustee. And then you've got the yearly costs, which is what's in front of you in brackets in item number 1, which is the annual administrative expenses, bookkeeping, accounting, and tax return lodgement, which would be approximately about $3,000 a month. That would be deducted from the income being received by the trustee in relation to all the assets being held in trust. There's also a loss of assets in your personal name. So let's go back to my story at the beginning. I said husband, wife, 2 children. Husband and wife decides to create a family trust, which would include, for example, their house where they live, the matrimonial home, a number of their property investments, maybe 1 or 2. Let's say it's a lucrative, they're doing quite well, this family. A number of their businesses, they all pull it under the trust. And they decide we want this percentage of distribution. What's going to happen is these assets would no longer be in the personal names of the husband and wife. It would all be in the name of the trustee. As I said, the trustee is the front of, as the registered owner of all these assets. And they're holding it. It's like I'm holding all these assets if I'm the trustee, but the beneficiaries, and it's not me really, it would be the beneficiaries identified in the contract. Another disadvantage is high tax rate of income if the trust is not appropriately distributed. And that's the reason why it was necessary for me to include in brackets, you need accountant advice to plan the tax. So And I'll get to that on the later part of this presentation on where do we start? Where do you start? Okay. Next slide, please. Other matters to consider. I'm not selling family trust. I'm not selling it. What I would like to partake to you is really have that understanding, and hopefully, I cannot avoid using the technical terms, but hopefully, you will get out of this an understanding, and you'll be able to sit down and have a discussion with your loved ones as to whether a family trust is really appropriate for your circumstance. So these are the other matters to consider. The trustee will have to pay tax on behalf of non-resident beneficiaries. So if you have one of the beneficiaries, as a tax, not a permanent resident of Australia or a citizen, they will have to pay higher tax each year. So consider that if you're planning to add a foreigner or non-resident beneficiary. Again, what does that mean? It means someone who is not a permanent resident or an Australian citizen. The trustee will have to pay higher tax. Second is the trustee pays tax on behalf of the beneficiaries under 18 years old if there's a higher distribution than $1,308 at the moment. Higher tax on that. Another matter to consider is if income is not fully distributed to all beneficiaries, the trustee pays 45% of the tax. So that means that there has to be income distribution so that the trustee is not hit with that large percentage of the tax. And that's why I continue to say there must be guidance that you should get with your accounting expert. At the end of the day, you say, so Rochelle, does that mean if you are the trustee, your name will be on all properties, you're the registered owner, you can do what you like with the properties? No. That's the reason why, if you have not seen one yet, it's quite wordy, the trust deed. It has all the fiduciary duties and obligations of a trustee. So if you do decide, if one of you who are listening out there, if you are not yet a trustee, and if you do decide to be a trustee, your obligation is to comply with a trust deed. Must follow it. It's unfortunately a criminal liability if a trustee does not comply with its fiduciary obligation, which is really complying with the proper distribution, comply with the proper reporting, because really the law protects the beneficiaries. And it's important where the trustee must get the appropriate guidance if unsure about getting the most in respect on behalf of the beneficiaries, and at the same time not abusing or not putting the assets at risks, because the trustee's job is yes, it's a lot of work for a trustee. The trustee's job is to make sure that the assets are protected and the beneficiaries get the most out of it until it's time for the beneficiaries to benefit and ultimately receive the benefits of the trust, the assets within the trust. Next slide, please. So there are two types of discretionary trust. Two types of trusts. I mentioned that earlier. Two types of trusts that you should consider if you are in this. To those of you who already have a family trust, you probably have an idea. If you don't, here it is. So one type of family trust is a discretionary trust, where the trustee decides to whom and how much the trust net income and capital gains will be distributed to the beneficiaries. That's the word discretionary. But like what I said with the fiduciary duties, the job of the trustee is to make sure that the assets are protected and that the beneficiaries get the most out of their assets. But what is good about the discretionary trust is that there's flexibility on the trustee's part. And usually a discretionary trust and is created where it's a parent is the trustee. and they decided they just decided to create a trust for the family to protect the family and make sure that there's something that the children can benefit for when they become adults. Unit trust, on the other hand, is the word fixed is there. It's a trustee. The trustee distributes the trust net income and capital gain based on a fixed form as defined by the trustee. Next slide, please. I would now like you to have a look at the first case study. Enjoy.
My wife and I have 2 children. We have a matrimonial home where we live, and we have 3 investment properties in the name of me and my wife. We also own a restaurant business in the name of a company, where me and my wife are joint directors. We would like that me, my wife and 2 kids to equally own and benefit from the property and business investments. How does a family trust work best in our circumstance?
Next slide, please.
My wife and I.
So let's summarize what this case is about. There's husband, wife, 2 children. The 2 kids are minor, under 18. They've got a house, matrimonial home. They've got 3 investment. They're doing well. 3 investment properties. And they're in the husband and wife's name. So we've got 4 houses here. 1 they live in, 3 other investment properties. And then at the same time, they've got a restaurant business in the company name where the husband and wife are directors. And their aim is for the husband, wife, and 2 children to equally own and benefit from the property and business investments. So how does a family trust work? This is what's going to happen. If the husband and wife decide, let's set up a family trust, but I want everything that we own covered by the family trust, I want it fixed. The wife goes, yeah. We should all equally benefit from it. I hear a unit trust is appropriate for that instance if they agree strictly that they want the benefits equally divided among all of them and they don't want any change. A unit trust deed should be prepared. The second thing that they need to consider, this family, is that who will be the trustee? Will we create a company as the trustee, or will it be one of us who will be the trustee? And that all then depends on how much expenses they're willing to incur if the trustee is a company versus if the trustee is individual. Another thing that they need to consider is also making sure that all their assets that they want captured in the family trust are clearly listed in the family trust. Once that's done, also they have minor children. When could the children even access these their income that they receive? When will they be able to access that? That could also be in the family trust since they're under 18 years old. So if I were advising this family, I'd say make a decision first. Do you agree that since you would like it fixed, equally shared among all of you, do you agree with my advice that a unit trust is the most appropriate? Number 2, who is the trustee? Is it an individual or a company? Number 3, are these all your assets? Are there other assets that are in the husband's name or the wife's name that you want pulled in the family trust? Or do the 2 of you want to keep something for yourselves in your own name so that it's quite clear? All these things are quite important when it comes to thinking about what should be captured in a family trust. I've got a second case study for you, so let's have a look. Next slide, please.
My brother and I own a construction business under a company name. We are both directors in that company. We now want to start jointly developing properties and have our construction business build the dwellings. We agreed that all profits and expenses relating to the construction and development business will be divided between us unless we agree otherwise. How does a family trust work best in our circumstance?
So let's summarize the circumstances of the brothers. And this is another usual method of putting in a family trust. So there's two brothers. They own a construction business, but the ownership is actually under a company name. They did mention that they were actually both directors of that company. They want to jointly start a developing property. So they've got the construction, but they want to start buying land. And then they said the construction company will start building the dwellings on that land that they buy. So it's a typical behavior, actually, of builders who want to go beyond the construction world and enter into development of properties. The usual. So what they wanted was actually put it in a family trust. All profits and expenses relating to the construction and development business will be equally divided between them unless otherwise agreed. So a family trust is appropriate in this instance, and the particular type of family trust would be a discretionary trust, because they say that, look, it is possible for one brother to say, look, I don't want to 50% commit, my life could change in 5 years. So I want to be able to opt out, or maybe, just maybe 25% rather than the 50%. And so that's the reason why a discretionary trust would be appropriate in this particular instance. And so what's really going to happen is that so once they decide that, yes, is a discretionary trust the appropriate one because of potential changes that we could have in relation to the involvement in this type of the construction and the development business, pulling it under the trust, the family trust. After deciding whether it's a discretionary trust, decide who will be the trustee. Will it be a company or will it be one of the individuals? In my view, with this type of setup, a company trustee would be appropriate. It is possible in the company trustee that there's still the directors. It is possible, or so that they are not, they are fully protected, they could consider that it's another individual who could be the director of that company trustee. What's going to happen here is, if you are not yet aware, I am in that industry. We do serve that industry, the construction and property industry. There's a lot of liabilities when it comes to construction. There's a lot of liabilities when it comes to property development. What's going to happen is the ownership of the construction business and the development, if they are within a family trust, could be protected in the event that there are concerns in relation to running the business. Of course, these are all subject to guidance in respect of particularities in the way the trust deed is set up, and the way identifying really how much of their construction business ought to be part of it, and identifying what is owned by the construction business and also the property development. And so what's going to happen is, as they buy property, land, and when I say they, the trustee, as the trustee buys land for the benefit of the family trust and the beneficiaries, the two brothers, it's important for the two brothers to note that the name of the ownership of the land would be in the trustee's name. It will no longer be theirs. And there's a lot of protection when it comes to potential bankruptcy if that occurs in their construction business and their development business. Next slide, please. So what did we just discuss today? I'm right on time. We discussed what is a family trust and how does it work? What are the common reasons a family trust is set up? What are the advantages, disadvantages, benefits, and expenses? We discussed the two types of family trust: discretionary, you can make changes; unit trust, fixed. And I hope that you picked up a few things from the two case studies. If one or both of them you can relate to, and of course, what should you do next? What you should do next, in my view, is next slide, please. What you should do next, in my view, is next slide, please. Thank you. What you should do next, in my view, is if you don't have a family trust yet, consider whether it is a fit for you. Second, if you're thinking about those assets that are jointly owned either by your spouse or a family member or another party, clearly you need their consent to put that in a family trust. Clearly, by approaching the other co-owner or co-owners of those properties and assets, clearly they're going to be part of the beneficiaries. And then identify whether a discretionary or unit trust is the more appropriate one. And of course, the details, get guidance. Get guidance from your legal advisor, get guidance from your accountant. Should you proceed with a family trust? And as the years pass, that's managed. To those of you that I'm speaking to who already have family trust, have a look at it. Have a review as to whether it's time to review and amend. Also, start thinking about for the last couple of financial years, has it been managed well? Meaning, when it comes to tax benefits, are you getting the appropriate guidance, or are you understanding the appropriate guidance, and are they being carried out? Thank you again to Pinoy Property Investors Australia for this opportunity. I hope you've taken away one, two, or a few things about family trust.
Thank you, Rochelle. So I think most of my questions were already addressed, but let's go through some of the questions from the group. How do we know if a family trust suits our circumstances?
How would you know if a family trust suits your circumstances? First is a lot of it is about looking into the future. First, look into the future and the assets you have that you want to protect. That's the first thing. Or assets that you plan to gain or increase that you would like to protect. Also, think about the beneficiaries. I don't want to keep pointing to families with children. Look, there are couples. There are couples who don't plan to have children, but they actually plan to pile up their properties. Good on you. Good on you, by the way. To all of you who plans to do that. And I know that this group that's the purpose of this Facebook group. But think about first your assets. What are the different types of assets that should be there? That should be captured and protected by the family trust. Who should be the beneficiary? And then how do you want the distribution of the income that are drawn from those assets? How soon do you want this done? What are the next things that you will do in the next 6 to 12 months? Is it time? Is it the right time to set up the family trust? Because there's, transactions and processes. If you're about to buy a property, do you need a trust set up before buying that property in respect of if you just signed a contract, for example? So hopefully consider those factors, and it will guide you as to whether family trust is something that suits your circumstances.
And for those who don't want their kids in the trust, they don't have to be family, right? They can be anyone. But
Absolutely. Absolutely. And no, thank you for clarifying that, Alvin. Yes, absolutely. Though the word is family trust, like what I said, and Alvin is right to point it out, it doesn't necessarily have to be children. It is who you decide to be the beneficiaries. And I mentioned, Alvin, earlier about issues in wills. That's what the family
Mhm.
trust is good for. These trust, we just call it trust deed, really. Where if you're not, if a person is not part of the will, but they're part of a trust, that's how they can receive the benefits
Yeah.
because that's protected.
Okay. Next. Um, Me and my wife want a family trust. Where do we start?
Identify all the properties that you and your wife share. Yes, definitely. And then make a decision. Which one do you want to keep for yourselves? And which one do you want to be part of the family trust? Uh, do you want to include future children into your trust? Are you planning to grow your family? If you don't have a family yet, would you like to include a family that you don't have yet? Do you want to include, for example, brothers and sisters? I know that most of us are actually, we went to this country. We're fortunate to be in this country, but I know there's a number of us who've got loved ones back home in Philippines. Would you like to include? But take note, I do have to say that. Remember the considerations I mentioned. Remember that, Alvin?
The tax.
Just additional tax if
Yeah.
it's a non-resident.
Is it considerable? Is it a lot?
It is. Compared to, it's not gonna take out a chunk, but it's definitely higher than
Yeah.
the usual tax that you pay.
Hmm.
And that's really a preference and decision, and it's just part of, I won't call it a risk. That's just part of the liability if you decide to add a beneficiary who's a non-Australian resident.
Yeah.
Mm.
And like if you have properties that you don't want inside the trust, you'll just keep it on your own personal name.
Exactly.
And whether you disclose it to your spouse is another matter.
Okay, why not?
Secret.
Victor.
He actually just got back. He got me a croissant. Very nice.
Oh, sweet, sweet, sweet. Despite your statement.
Yeah, I know. Well, he didn't know about that.
Okay.
Next question: if we change our mind, can we end a family trust?
Yes, you can. You can end it. You can amend a family trust, but that's all bound by the terms in the trust in respect of the distribution.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about distribution. So you have to follow the distribution rules. And can you make changes to a trust? Yeah, it's like any agreement. You can make amendments, but there are rules. That's where, although you think that the trustee has a lot of say in it, but actually they're bound by the rules in the trust deed.
Yeah. And how often can you change?
As often as you want.
Okay.
As long as you pay the lawyer, no worries. Really, as long as you want. I say that because I do recommend, especially if it covers assets, you need the expert advice. I just happen to be a lawyer, but I keep going back to get your accountant to have a look at it. That's what these experts are for. So when it's time for you, if you want to change the terms in the agreement, get the view, because not all, Alvin, not all trust deeds, you're probably aware of this, not all trust deeds have the same terms and conditions. It all depends. It's written according to the suitability of what the family, the beneficiaries, and the trustee would like in the family trust terms and conditions.
So again, I guess it's worth repeating to always include your experts, your team. So don't unless you want to do it yourself, but then you will be prone to mistakes. Especially with the tax, with the tax implications.
Absolutely.
It could really work for your favor done properly. So consider who you get your advice from. Fourth question.
Yes.
Okay, so do we have to pay stamp duty again if we transfer the property from our personal names into the trust?
Yes. Because Sorry. Okay, there's a reaction. Short answer is yes. Because me, as Rochelle Castro as an individual, is not the same as me, Rochelle Castro, as a trustee.
Mm.
I may be the same name, but there's a lot of intricacies and the legalities and reportings to the State Revenue Office, as I mentioned earlier, and also to Land Victoria. They ask those questions. Are you a trustee? That's one of the main things that they ask, because that's recorded in their data. And because of the change and transfer, and these are just all the things, all the costs that relate to a trust.
Mhm.
And at the same time, that's all part and parcel, because there's you're really, the way it's looked at on the legal aspect is it's being transferred. That's a transfer.
Mhm.
That's why. So any transfer of property, unless the transfer of the property, I have to say this, is for love and affection. Let's say husband transferred to the wife for love and affection, or it was part of the agreement for divorce and it was transferred for love and affection. That won't hit the stamp duty. It's not the same for a trustee transfer, because it's
Mhm.
looked at as a transaction. So short answer is you do have to pay stamp duty.
So I guess if you're planning on doing it and you're planning on purchasing your next investment property, you should consider setting it up before, so that you don't pay the stamp duty twice.
Spot on. I mentioned earlier, just before you came in, that it would be appropriate that if you have just signed a contract of sale before the transfer is made,
Mm.
you should consider, should I set up a family trust now so that I can put it in the trustee, so that the trustee before settlement can
Yes.
be the legal owner.
Yeah.
That's that situation that you just
Well,
said.
because even if you sign the contract, you still have the time until just before settlement.
Exactly.
Yeah. To
Exactly.
change to change it into a trustee.
And you can avoid that additional,
Yeah.
additional stamp duty,
Yeah.
which is quite costly.
Yeah. Oh, let me just go back. One last thing is that in the costs, you said it's about 3,000. Did you say a month or a year?
Oh no, a year. No,
A
a
year, a
year.
year.
A
Okay,
year,
I
a
thought
year,
I
a
heard a
year.
month. That's a lot.
No. Unless I said a month, I'm gonna review this. I'm recording. I hope I didn't say a month. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
year for
It's
admin,
about 3,000.
bookkeeping, accounting. It's really every financial year the trustee has an obligation to do reporting. It's like any entity. Yeah. So a year.
All right. Thank you. There are some questions that are more appropriate to be asked with an accountant. So go through that with them. But for the purposes of this of this forum, thank you very much, Rochelle.
Oh, it's a
It
pleasure.
was very enlightening. I hope we can do this again next time with a different topic, legal topic.
It will be our pleasure.
We'll we'll
My
we'll we'll
team's
we'll,
pleasure.
we'll sort out what the group wants, and we'll let you know. We'll invite you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. And yeah, look forward to future topics. Have a good night, everyone. I'm gonna check off and leave Alvin Reyes to bid you all. Yeah, good
Thank
day. Thank
you.
you. Thank you for having me again, Alvin.
Thanks, Rochelle. Okay, salamat everyone. Thank you for joining us. And if you didn't know, there is one with ROMs for I think it's a business one. So for those business owners, it's posted on the group. And then next week again. What was the topic next week? I forgot. SMSF set up for next weekend. Salamat.